Well, so many things that happen in a week in Canadian immigration. Sometimes it's so difficult to keep up with them. And that's the reason we are here bringing you another episode of Canadian Weekly Roundup, Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup, so that you can keep up to date with whatever is happening. And if, of course, you are on your journey for permanent residence, study visas, visit visas, work permits, or whatever else that might interest you, then you can align your path. You can align your progress accordingly based on the updates that are happening within the Canadian immigration world. My name is Kubeir. I am a CICC licensed immigration consultant, and I do this because I absolutely love this subject. On that note, if you are in Dubai, then I would be very happy to meet with you if you are interested in attending this exhibition. This is IRIX Residency and Citizenship Conclave, which is happening, I understand, on 9th and 10th of December at the Taj Dubai Business Bay between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. So if you are interested, then by all means do come across. I mean, we are there. We are apparently a silver partner there with them. So yeah, we obviously will be hosting our stand there as well and discussing and talking about different ways that you might be able to come to Canada through entrepreneur stream, through business immigration. So if you are in Canada on the 9th or if you are in Dubai, if you're in Dubai on the 9th or 10th of December, then in Taj Dubai Business Bay, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., it would be great to bump into you there. Okay. That's the first one. Second one is if you are in Toronto, in Canada, this week, 19th of November, that is when we would be officially launching our new office. Finally, we are back into the office. The team was fed up working remotely. We had to sort of get the human interaction going. And therefore, this is the office address, Suite 201, 2950 Keele Street, North York. Please do come in on the 19th of November between 12 and 4 p.m. Join us for a cup of coffee, for discussion, some brainstorming as to what is going to happen with Canadian immigration, anything that you would like. And of course, we will be offering some promotional discounts on our services. So while this is now out of the way, let's get cracking. Quote of the week. The bad news is time flies. The good news is you are the pilot. I mean, it couldn't have been said in any better manner. Michael Altshuler, obviously you're the pilot. You have it in your control. Of course, the time will continue to fly, but how you want it to fly, in which direction you want it to fly, absolutely in your hands, absolutely within your control. So make good use of your time. This is the weekly roundup, starting with the PNP draws. Were there any PNP draws? Well, the PNP draws have been paused by most of the provinces. British Columbia had paused draws since the October 12th, and they will continue to be paused until the 16th of November. For people who do not know, then there is the NOC system change, which is expected in 4 days' time. Because of that, they have paused their draws. Manitoba has also paused their draws since the 16th of September, and will continue to pause it until the November 16th, post which they would start new draws. Saskatchewan had not announced anything, but you know what? They did conduct a draw, and we will talk about that. Ontario has also not announced any pause, but they have been sending out emails and making small notifications to say that, yes, there are changes coming from the 16th onwards. British Columbia did conduct a draw, in spite of the fact that their draws are on pause, but then this is only because this has nothing to do with the NOC system. This was the entrepreneur draw. They don't have them that often, but they announced 5 invitations under their regional pilot entrepreneur stream, and score was only 114. They also announced 8 invitations under their base stream for the entrepreneur immigration, and the minimum score was 120 for people who are interested within the business immigration or how to immigrate to Canada as a business investor. First of all, and very, very importantly, guys, you have to understand and you have to note this, that you cannot buy your way into Canadian immigration. I know there are a lot of people out there who say these things, that you can buy some property, buy some real estate, invest in real estate and become permanent residents. It does not happen. It cannot happen. It is not happening. It hasn't happened. There was a program, or rather there is a program with Quebec where you deposit, I think it's 1.2 million on a 5-year bond, and you may be eligible for permanent residence, but that program is closed. there is a huge long waiting list, and the processing times are ludicrous. Okay, I mean, so don't waste your time on those factors. In most immigration programs, the entrepreneur streams, you have to have net worth and you have to be willing to invest in a business in Canada, buy it, invest in it, whatever you want to do it. After that, you file your expression of interest, you get points, you get drawn, you get invited, you submit your application. If it's approved, you get endorsement, you apply for work permit, you come to Canada, you set up your business, you invest the money you said you will be investing, then you are audited. Once you're audited and everything is good, as per your business agreement, business plan that you have submitted, you get nominated, then you apply for permanent residence. This is the business immigration program for all the provinces at this point of time. They all follow similar format. It can take 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 years, depending on how you take progress, because each of these are milestones. Each of these take time. Each of this has a process time. So back to what we were talking about. Obviously, British Columbia has invited people under this stream. Now, for British Columbia, you really need, how much do we need? We need 600,000 for the base as your net worth. You need to be able to invest 200,000. This is the base stream. This is the basic. You can have this business anywhere in BC. And then under the regional pilot, which is also called the rural immigration for BC, the net worth requirement is only $300,000, and you have to be able to invest $100,000 in a smaller community, not in Vancouver, not in Surrey, not in Victoria, but in smaller communities who have been designated, so once you have gotten the support of the community, then you will be able to apply for the nomination. And that's how this program rolls. And that's how it goes with this one. Saskatchewan did also conduct a draw, surprisingly, after the fact that knock changes are happening, but they conducted a draw, which is a very small, muted draw, if I would like to call it. They invited only 10 candidates in the express entry stream. Lowest score was only 69. They invited 21 candidates under the OID, occupation and demand stream, and the lowest score was again 69, but they only restricted themselves to 6 NOC codes. All of them are in the healthcare, psychologists, chiropractors, I think some radiologists as well, and occupational therapists. That's the knock codes: 3122, 3143, 3215, 3216, 3234, and 4151. Express entry. Yes, of course, there was express entry draw that happened this week on the 9th of November as anticipated. Initially, I was a bit skeptical, but thankfully it did happen. Total of 4,750 candidates were invited. They have stopped any incremental increase in the draws, or at least for this draw, there was no incremental increase. The last draw was also 4,750. This draw was also 4,750. The problem was that the number of, the score did not really drop as much as we would have liked the scores to drop. It was only 2 points drop at 494. And one of the biggest reasons for that was the pool breakdown. The number of new profiles, the number of people who were in the pool, who added themselves to the pool, or who got added into the pool, who upgraded themselves, or whatever the reason might be, the number was just too high. Above 500, you had 1,206. Above 600, which was the nominations, 958. That was a big number. Let me put this up instead. So CRS score was 494, 4,750 invitations issued. This was 10th all-program draw. As I said, 2,164 profiles got added above the score of 501. In the 491 to 500 as well, there was 4,366, which was an addition of 1,191 profiles over the draw-to-draw basis, if you see. And just to give you a snapshot of some numbers, the total draw-on-draw increase in 500 plus profile was 2,164. That is one of the reasons why the scores didn't really drop a lot. 1,780 is the number of profiles which are still in the express entry pool, which scores more than 491. So if the next draw estimates are to be taken into consideration, ITAs probably are going to remain the same at 4,750, and the CRS score would be 490 to 491. And the reason why I'm very conservative with the prediction of 490, 491, and not saying 489, 490 kind of a score, because there are still 1,780 people in the pool. There would definitely be some nominations that would be issued, and most definitely there would also be people who will be added into the profiles, or who would be getting themselves added into the express entry pool, just like it has happened this week. It may not be the same numbers, it could be more, it could be less, but we are pretty much sitting at the 491 kind of a number, 491, 492, if everything else remains the same, which basically means the scores are expected to drop below 490, probably December and later from there on. And back to this one. In other news, New Brunswick, new program for critical workers has been announced, and just the way how these programs are, details were not announced, details were not published. Nobody said how exactly you will be able to get through with this, except for the fact that 6 employers have been selected in New Brunswick, and those are the names. I don't even want to. Cook and Group, Savoy and Wesco and Imperial Manufacturing and JD Irving and McCain Foods. Now, I'm assuming that these, if you get an employment job offer for most of the positions with any of these 6 companies, then you would probably be eligible to apply in this stream. As I said, the details were not announced, were not published. So if you are interested to immigrate through the New Brunswick program, I would say get cracking, identify these 6 employers, see what their vacancies are, figure out what positions might be open. If you can network, then network. If you can connect, then connect. Identify these people, get, and apply if you can at the earliest. Ontario has also launched Entrepreneur Success Initiative. I do not know how they come up with these names. So now it is now referred to as OINPESI. It will help prospective immigrant entrepreneurs to develop and submit applications under the entrepreneur streams. This program will be managed by Toronto Business Development Center, TBDC. Now, for people who are interested in business immigration, again, this is the second stream that we're talking about today under the Ontario. If you intend to start a business in GTA stands for Greater Toronto Area, and certain regions come under this area. So then your minimum requirement for net worth should be $800,000, and you would be willing to invest at least $600,000 in a business. You can start a new one. There are certain businesses which you cannot invest in. You can find that information on the Ontario website. But if you're looking to set up the business outside the GTA area, Windsor, London, Cambridge, anywhere outside the GTA, Toronto GTA area, then the minimum net worth requirement is $400,000, and you have to be in a position to invest at least $200,000 directly into the business. That would make you eligible under this Ontario's immigration stream. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you will create your expression of interest, get selected, file your documents with business plan, you get your endorsement, get your work permit, come to Canada, set up your business, get audited, get nominated, get your PR. Long process, but it helps if that is what you intend to do to start with. PNP targets continue to increase, and this is something which we have discussed earlier as well. This is part of the multi-year immigration levels plan that was announced on the 1st of November by IRCC, whereby there was an increase in the PNP quotas, provincial nominee program quotas, from 85,000 to 105,000 now. So it's a 20,000 increase. 20,000 people increase on the immigration quotas is big. It's really big, because what this will mean is that I'm sure Ontario gets a big chunk of it. Similarly, it will also proportionally be spread out between British Columbia, between Saskatchewan, between Alberta, and obviously the Atlantic provinces as well. But I'm assuming a decent amount of share will come to Ontario, to Saskatchewan, to the bigger provinces, who conduct these programs quite successfully. And because of that increase, you will obviously, as is normal, you would see an increase in the number of invitations. You will also see increase in certain streams that they would actually like to invite people in. They could also probably start new streams as well, because now this is, and I have a feeling that this is all a part of them trying to re-strategize with the Bill C-19. The thing is, when the Bill C-19 is initiated, and again, for the people who are not in the know about Bill C-19, Bill C-19 is, or rather was, the Parliament motion which was approved, which made changes in the IRPA and IRPA. IRPA and IRPA stands for Immigration Refugee Protection Act, Immigration Refugee Protection Regulation, which now authorizes the minister, which is Immigration Minister, to identify categories within the express entry pool and then invite people from those categories. Now, that would again become something what is similar to what provincial nominee programs are. Provincial nominee programs do the same thing. They identify categories and they invite people from those categories. Those could be occupation based, those could be the language based, they could also be scores and occupation based. They have their own grid point. They can make several different criteria, several different streams. As you can, you can check any provincial nominee program. They have so many different streams. That is what Bill C-19 will do in express entry. They will create these categories. Now, as per the requirement of the law, after the fifth, or rather by the fifth sitting of the parliament after the 31st of January, that is the date, after the fifth sitting of the parliament, or by the fifth sitting, I forget the exact text. So you are expecting somewhere in the month of February 2023, categories will be announced in express entry. Based on that, you will know exactly which category you can target, depending on your occupation code, depending on your language skills, depending on where you are, and depending on where you want to be in Canada. All of this will critically make a big difference. Mind you, most of the people as of right now want to usually come to Toronto, want to go to Vancouver, want to go to Montreal, want to go to Calgary, few main cities, because that is where most people go. But with this new categories, IRCC would be looking to invite people who are specifically wanting to go to other parts of Canada, which are not necessarily the most popular ones, because they want to diversify the immigration throughout the country, not restrict them to certain hotspots as has been seen historically. So much more to be understood and seen when the month of Feb hits us. But let's continue with this for the time being. Immigration backlogs is decreasing. This is finally something that we can look at and feel happy about. In the month of September, rather end of September, the backlogs were at 2.6 million, which had reduced from August, where it was about 2.6 million. So it had increased from there. So 2.5, almost 2.6 million remained the same in September, 2.6 million. And now finally in November, we are at 2.4 million. So the numbers have reduced. So when you look at the backlogs and start wondering, just a 200,000 decrease in the backlogs, does it make any difference? Well, you have to also keep in mind that each day new applications are also submitted. Express entry is back in full force. PNP applications are happening, TRVs, visit visas are happening, study visas are happening, work permits are happening. So everybody is submitting new applications, and if the backlog is decreasing, then it basically means there is an added factor of more applications coming in. But the numbers decreasing means more applications are indeed being cleared out, which is a good thing. So the backlog as of 3rd of November now stands at 2.4 million. This is the backlog inventory. Just a small graphical representation there, but let's take a bit of peek into these numbers. As of 3rd of October, for the permanent residence inventory, you had 500,000. It remains almost the same. Again, as I was saying, new people are also applying. New people are also submitting their applications. So the number is remaining almost the same. It basically means more and more applications are indeed being cleared out. Temporary residence numbers are actually now dropping in the backlogs. We have also seen a huge number of refusals coming through. So I'm not sure if refusals are happening and that is how the backlogs are decreasing. But overall, the good thing is that the backlogs are decreasing and we can hopefully have this out of our way once and for all. Now, hot topic for discussion, express entry in 2023. I know so many of you are on pins and needles as to what is going to happen with express entry. Which way is this going? What kind of changes are we expecting? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? Well, let's start with the bad first, okay? Because that is the bad. It's going to be difficult. It's definitely, again, this is my opinion. I'm saying this based on all the numbers that I keep eating, breathing, living, walking over all the time, and looking at the trends. Express entry is going to become difficult, and it is going to become difficult because of the exponential demand that has gone up. You can see in the express entry pool, the number of profiles that keep getting added with such high scores has grown exponentially. I mean, it's crazy, those numbers. Each week, each 2 weeks, you see more than 1,000+ people adding in the express entry pool with scores of 500+. This is a big number. So express entry is definitely going to get difficult. It is going to get difficult, no two ways about it. uh, Also, in the talks is the fact that express entry needs revision. It's actually going to be revised. We do not know how the new version of express entry is going to be looking like, but there are very, very serious talks within the IRCC circles that they are looking to review the points for Canadian work experience, Canadian education, job offers, yeah, and any kind of Canadian connection. So if they are to review these points, increase these points, then obviously the biggest beneficiaries are going to be the people who have Canadian connection, work experience, education, job offer. There is also talks that the points for job offers may be bumped up from, as of right now, you get 50 points for a job offer if you have an LMIE approved job offer, or if you're on a closed work permit, but you have spent 1 year in Canada on that work permit and you have a job offer from that company, you can get 50 points for NOC 0AB. You get 200 points for NOC 00. So there is a talk that these points may also be bumped up. The 50 points may bump up from 75 to 100. I do not know how much that will be, but again, these are all talks and speculations and assumptions at this point of time. But with those changes happening, as I said, for anybody who's outside Canada, it is going to be difficult. Also, coming into play would be Bill C-19. Bill C-19 is going to make it difficult. Not again, Bill C-19 can be good, can be bad. Why is it bad? It is bad because it makes categories. And if you're not within that category, then it's bad for you. But why is it good? It's good because if you are in that category, then once they start inviting people within that category, then even the lower CRS scores have a great opportunity and a chance to get through. And that is where it will make the biggest of differences. And that is going to be the biggest of good things or good changes that Bill C-19 will bring. Because as I said, I understand that there is so much of anxiety. There is so much of nerves which are cracking up at this point of time. But these changes it was going to happen, right? I mean, IRCC cannot sustain the kind of immigration programs they were running. It's creating a huge imbalance. And I've been repeating this. I mean, I think I have a broken record all the time, that there are more than 1 million people in Canada who are temporary residents, international students, foreign workers, open work permit holders, international mobility programs. All these people are looking for permanent residence pathway, and they aren't able to find one. And therefore it has become, now earlier we used to say, if you are an international student, come to Canada. If you study in Canada, you will have a pathway. Now international students in Canada will tell you it's not easy at all. Even if you're an international student in Canada, it's not going to happen for you unless you find support of an employer. You have to find support of an employer, otherwise it's going to be very, very difficult. So earlier, agents in India would sell these programs, education programs, to high school students. So you have completed your school, go to Canada on a 2-year diploma, and once you go to Canada, you will find a pathway. Now, those people are really, really struggling. One, because of the low IELTS scores. Two, because of the education. So they do not really have many points to go with. They are entirely reliant on support from PNP, support from the job offers, support from the employers who can support them in PNPs. And therefore, as we move forward, you have to be very, very careful. You have to be very, very smart with the way you plan your pathway, with the way you plan your journey, if at all. I mean, studying in Canada will still continue to be a good pathway if you are smart about it, if you've planned that journey well. For example, you're at a score of 450, 460, 470, 480 kind of a score. If you have identified a good, decent program, let's say a master's degree, you come and study in master's. Now, by studying master's in Canada, a few things happen. British Columbia has a master's stream whereby after you have graduated from that master's program in a specific field, you can apply for nomination directly. Bang. New Brunswick, and I think it's New Brunswick, yes, they have a program as well whereby if you have completed masters from certain universities or colleges, bang, you will be able to apply for a provincial nominee program. Ontario has this big, beautiful stream whereby they're called the masters and the master's graduate and the PhD graduate stream, whereby if you complete your master's from certain designated universities in Ontario within the last 2 years of you making your application, you would be able to apply for nomination with no other criteria at all, or rather very, very simple, straightforward criteria, nothing complicated there. So when you're planning for permanent residence pathway, you have to be very smart about it and identify how are you going to do it. You So thinking that I will land in Canada and that's when I'm going to work out how I will become a permanent resident, that won't work anymore. That is going to be a disaster, as hundreds and thousands of international students are now realizing. Also, please do not fall for coming to Canada on a visit visa and then finding your pathway. That in most cases doesn't work. It just costs you more money. Even if you come to Canada on a visit visa, if you have a visit visa, which is a great thing, have a path before you arrive in Canada. So all in all, a lot of change is expected in express entry. Some will be good, some will be bad. There can always never be, everybody cannot be a winner. It's not going to work like that. It's always playing to the demand and supply. The points will change, the scoring factors will change, the Bill C-19 will play a big huge role. There are new categories who are now eligible in express entry come 16th of November. They will also have an influence based on the categories. For example, truck drivers, for example, nursing aides, for example. There are certain other occupations which IRCC may want to concentrate on because those are where the big demand is. So collectively, a lot of things to expect from. As I said, some good, some bad, depends on which side of the whole equation you are on. As normal, we stay forever hopeful, because in my opinion, that's the only way to be. That's the only way to keep chin up. Mind you, Canada is not the end of the world. I mean, if at all you are planning your journey and if it's not working out for you, so it's not working out for you. I mean, it's okay. You will still be successful wherever you wish to be, as long as you put your mind to it. Netherlands, I heard, is opening up. Apparently, without IELTS, you study there and you are able to find permanent residence. So give that a look. UK is opening up because they now have realized that Canada is taking away most of their international students because they offer a pathway. So UK is beginning to open up. I'm not sure too much about Australia as to which way they are going to go. They are still pretty much stuck on the way they were operating their programs. Same thing with New Zealand. Don't see much happening there. US is pretty much out of the equation because it doesn't really give you that much of opportunity. Apart from that, there are some other countries in Europe which might also. Germany is again opening up. I've also heard Denmark offering some programs that might be of help. So as I said, there are plenty of options. Don't give up hope just about yet. And always keep an eye on Canada because there's something or the other happening. One way of doing that is you can keep watching this weekly roundup because you will know what exactly is going on. And if you haven't done that, you most definitely should. Subscribe to the channel because that way you will get the most updated information as and when that happens, so that you can always realign your paths if at all you have moved away from it. And of course, do follow us on Instagram as well. While you're watching this, hit that like button so this video goes out to more people, so that way they can also take advantage of this this information. Well, on to the questions now. Let's see what so many people have been saying. Karna, thank you for the super chat. I got the score and ITA 2 months earlier than actual. Where and what to put in notes to explain the scenario to officer when I apply? Firstly, only apply or only submit your application after you have completed your period of valid work experience, not before that. Because yes, the system has this glitch whereby, because the work experience is, you put your work history as per the month year, the system does calculate it earlier than when you would have completed your work experience and gives you those points. IRCC is aware. You can always add a letter of explanation if you wish to in the client information section. Excuse me. And once you have done that, you can, again, as I said, go ahead and submit your application. There is no problem about it. Just do it after you have completed your eligible period of work. Venkatesh, thank you for the super chat. Waiting for East UPR after in Canada declaration and photo submission. Can I travel to US and return by border on work permit? Will there be an issue if I get East UPR when I'm in US and I declared I'm in Canada? You can travel to the US and return back on the work permit. Always keep in mind, when you do not have a valid TRV, it is always at the discretion of the border officer. So yes, technically you can, but it is always going to be on the discretion of the border officers. You're taking a risk if you. First of all, I would suggest, if you can avoid traveling until you get your COPR, then avoid it. That is the best case scenario. If you cannot avoid it, then if you get an eCOPR when you are in US, yeah, it's a bit tricky, because the reason you're getting an eCOPR is because you have confirmed you are in Canada. Until you get the eCOPR, you are not a permanent resident. So there is that gap between you having confirmed and they then creating a portal request and then sending you the ECUPR. That period of time is a gap where you still haven't become a permanent resident. So if you leave, you still are not permanent resident. The reason you're getting the ECOPR is because you are in Canada and they can virtually land you. So my suggestion would be to avoid traveling at this point of time until you become a permanent resident. What about the spouses quota, sir? The spouses quota has pretty much remained the same. I think it's at about 78,000 for the family immigration. So it's pretty much remained the same. No increase, no decrease there. Maybe a bit of variation, but not too much there. What do you estimate the next draw? I'm at 493 and waiting. Well, the next draw, first of all, I am not even sure if the next draw is going to happen on the 23rd of November. And I have said this before. I'm hoping that it does happen. And the reason why I hope it does happen is because IRCC will initiate the changes within the NOC 2021 next week, which is on the 16th of November. And if everything goes well, if all the changes are incorporated, if people have been able to make those profile changes well, I'm hoping that they continue with the express entry draw. But historically speaking, and having seen how it happens before, there is a good possibility that 23rd November draw may be skipped. If that draw gets skipped, then obviously it's going to have a direct impact on the scores. Now, instead of 23rd, they might decide to do a draw on the 30th of November instead of 23rd. That's a possibility. But first things I'm very, very skeptical about is the draw on the 23rd. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Fingers are crossed. I hope it does. I really, really hope it does. This time I really want to be wrong about this particular speculation, if you want to call it. But let's see how that goes. So if at all the draw does happen on 23rd of November, then I'm assuming 493 should definitely get played out. I don't see any reason why not. If it doesn't happen, then it's going to put a direct pressure on the scores, and we'll have to wait and watch how many more people got added and what's it looking like. Because what's also going to happen is it's going to play two ways. Come 16th of November, there will be a lot of people who will not be able to make the changes for whatever the reason might be. Either the system glitch, either they are not aware, either they did not pay attention to this whole thing, either their profiles become ineligible, either they get thrown out because of the tiebreaker. But a lot of things will happen, because if your profile becomes ineligible, means you're creating a new profile, means you're back of the queue in terms of tiebreaker if and when it affects your score. So I'm expecting a lot of things to happen whenever that happens on the 16th of November and onwards from there on. So I see the pool distribution also getting affected directly. And so next week is going to be very, very interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. 16th of November, going to be very, very interesting day as to how this, when will they announce, okay, now the changes have been made, please go ahead and make the changes, versus how many people are actually able to do it or face difficulties. But in the meantime, if you're waiting for these changes to happen, you should have identified your NOC code or new NOC code, and then keep yourself ready as to when it happens. Excuse me. Can we get 50 points for job offer if ITA is received during implied status? My current work permit is expired. My extension is already filed. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. Are you an LMIA applicant? Are you saying your LMIA has expired and you had a job work permit? Yeah, there is too much of confusion. I'm sorry, I will not be able to answer that because there are too many unknowns in your question. I don't even know what kind of a job offer. Is it LMIA job offer? Is it a closed work permit? Is it a ICT job offer? And you're in an implied status, which basically means, did you file for an extension based on a new LMIA? So yeah, there are too many unknowns here. Vishal, thank you for the super chat. LMIA based closed work permit expiring after AOR. Will I need a new one? Bridge open work permit is enough. Also, will I need a new job offer? If you are on a work permit which is expiring after AOR, then just submit a bridge open work permit. That is good enough. If your employer insists on a closed work permit, well, then they will have to file for one and get you a new work permit. Both the options are open for you. You can file an extension for a closed work permit because your employer can do that for you, or you can file for a bridge open work permit because you're eligible to do that. Which medical course is best? I can't tell you. I don't even know anything about you. I don't know your background. So all medical courses are good. You pick your choice, what matches for you in your background. Rohit, thank you for the super chat. I have done BDS and have 5 years of experience as an administrative officer in a public sector insurance company. Will this have effect on my express entry profile in regards to relevancy? No, it doesn't. If you have your equivalency or your ECA for your dental, your bachelor's in dental, you will claim points for professional degree. And if you have work experience as an administrative officer, you will claim points for your work experience. There is no problem in express entry. I'm tired of this nonsense info you keep providing. I guess it's time to leave your channel. Since I've been here, I've benefited nothing, just negative talks and frustrating scores from EE size. Well, I'm hoping that you've already left and you haven't stuck around to hear my response, because I have none to give you. If you cannot stomach reality, if you cannot stomach uh, the logic and facts, then I think you should be watching other YouTube videos which might give you those highs that you're looking at. I can also recommend some other channels, but I don't think that would be nice, because there are polite and decent people watching here as well. Can you say about file reconsideration after getting visa refusal with experience of your service? Well, it can. Reconsideration is an option you have if you are able to identify that visa officer may have made an error in fact or law, or fact and law. Fact and law basically means that they have not considered a specific law, which basically should have been considered in your case and given you the benefit for you to be able to approve, or you have provided facts but those facts were not considered and therefore your application was refused. So if you can identify any of these to be the situation where your application was not considered and gotten refused, then you can apply for reconsideration. You can also do some legal research and identify similar scenarios under which a federal court has given positive decision in the favor of the candidate. You can quote those decisions, you can quote those case laws, and you can also then make your request for reconsideration. But this basically needs a better understanding of what exactly was the reason for your refusal, and based on that, does it warrant a reconsideration or not? It's a 50-50 kind of a thing. We've had experience where reconsideration requests were indeed accepted and they were approved after reconsideration, and there are obviously also cases where they were not considered and they were not approved because there really was nothing else to do. Okay, thank you for the super chat. This is Raj from Muscat. Wanted to know if we can hire a PG student to work more than 20 hours a week. You want to hire? You're from Muscat. I'm not sure what exactly is going on here, but yes, international students can work full time from 15th of this month. If they were studying in Canada, if their study permits were already approved from the 7th of October and before 7th of October, then they are now eligible to work full time from the 15th of November. Okay. Vishal Bhame, you're awesome. Thank you for the videos. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Appreciate it. Karna says, how much percentage of knock duty should match in the reference letter? I see some of the knock duties are main while others are optional. How to calculate how much percentage is matching up? Okay, there is no such thing as percentage. This percentage factor has been done by people themselves out of their own imagination. It doesn't work like that. Where does it say what percentage? If it is not mentioned in any of the regulations or the law, then there is no such thing as presentation. What it does mention is, I'm sorry, but my sniffles, I think sorry. What it does mention is that substantial number of your duties should match. Now, this substantial is very, very subjective. Substantial for some visa officers could be 50%. Substantial for some visa officers could be 90%. So the substantial is very, very subjective by who is assessing your application. But the way to look at it is that if I look at the knock duties and what is mentioned in the knock duties, including what is also mentioned on the lead statement, the summary that is mentioned above, and it tells you which kind of company you could be working for, what kind of duties you would be doing, what kind of role you would be performing, and then the list of duties and responsibilities. Collectively, if I was to see the knock duties and then see your description of your job, I would say yes, they match. Not going too much into detail about how much percentage it should be. So if you're looking at a number of percentage, I would say always aim for more than 60-70%. That is always keeping you in the safe. If there are any optional duties mentioned in the knock code, then obviously they don't apply to you. But always keep into mind the the key activities. So for example, in some knock code it will say plan, direct, control, organize. So these are main keywords that should be in your duties, not in the same manner but in a paraphrased manner if you would want to. If you're not performing a role of planning, organizing, directing, controlling within your job role, and that is mentioned in the knock code, then again it's a mismatch. For example, there are some supervisory knock codes whereby they say that they assign duties, they train, they supervise people, or they are managing a team. And if this is not indicative in your job description, then you would not be assessed as a supervisor who's actually a supervisor for that role, and you will not get those points, and therefore your application may be refused. And hence, this is what you will need to keep in mind when you're trying to check your job description and trying to match it with a knock code. I hope that helps. Mehak Mehta says, my postgraduate work permit was supposed to be issued by the 4th of November, but I haven't received it yet. Can I continue working because my study permit has also expired? Now, I'm assuming you are saying 4th of November because that was what was mentioned in your postgraduate work permit extension letter that was given to you on the system, which said that, yeah, you can continue working until this and this date, or if your application is approved, whichever happens first. If that is what you're mentioning to, then you can absolutely continue working if you have applied for your postgraduate work permit within the period of time that you should have applied until the decision is made. And if you are concerned, you can always raise a web form and you can ask IRCC to issue another letter which will allow you to continue working. But regardless of what, the law states that if you have applied for your postgraduate work permit within the period of time that you should have applied, then you can continue working because you're in a maintained status until the decision is made. And the decision could be two. One, you would be approved. Two, you would be refused. If you're approved, voila, you can obviously continue working. If you're refused, on that day, you should stop working, and you have to then look at alternatives as to how you can regularize your status. I am on an LMIA work permit valid until 2025 and claiming 50 points in EE, waiting for ITA. I am eligible for postgraduate work permit 18 months extension. My employer has started layoff. In the safe side, can I apply for postgraduate work permit? Yes, you can. There is no problem in applying for a postgraduate work permit. With a valid open work permit, can we work in Canada remotely for, say, working from Toronto for a US-based employer? Can this be considered as Canadian work experience in CEC? You are working for a US-based employer. The minute it's an employer who's not a Canadian employer, that is the end of it. There is no Canadian work experience. The criteria for Canadian work experience is that you're working for a Canadian employer in Canada and you have an employer-employee relationship. That is Canadian work experience. Okay, thank you for providing so much information, keeping us sane. Please share some info on CEC backlog numbers, waiting since December 2020. Everything complete for me and the wife. Well, if everything is complete, hopefully I'm hoping that you should get your decision pretty soon. I don't have the CEC backlog numbers as of now. At the last count, the numbers were really, really low. They had already come down to about 6,000, or even actually dropping below 6,000. So I'm hoping that your application should be just around the corner. I wish you all the best. And if you haven't yet applied, then apply for the GCMS notes just to get an insight as to where it may be stuck, if at all. And do call IRCC to check on the status if they can give you any insight as well. Post ITA, if a new baby is born, can I add a child in the profile? Do I need to inform IRCC by web form? Because it is post ITA, which basically means it is not AOR yet, which basically means you haven't submitted your PR application, which basically means, yes, of course, you have to, you're obligated to, you must update your application, PR application, before submitting to IRCC that your baby is born. This is the baby's details. This is the baby's birth certificate. If you do not have the passport, upload a letter of explanation providing information as to the fact that the baby has just been born. You don't have a passport, you've applied. Provide proof of having applied for the passport as well. Gur Iqbal says, my AOR is 2020 Outland, added spouse in August 2022, medical and biometrics done in September. When can I expect PPI? Well, in such cases, usually it adds 4 to 6 months time in the process. So that would probably be about the time you can expect. Hey, you mentioned in one of your earlier videos that there is a PCC where you apply inside the country and one where you apply outside. Can you please clarify the difference and when each is needed? Okay, all right. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking because the question is not clear, but I will talk about the PCCs very quickly anyways. Police clearance certificates are mandatory documents. If you do not provide them, then your application gets refused. If you apply from your country, whichever your country of residence is, then from your country of residence, if obviously you've been residing in that country for 6 months or more in a row, the police clearance is valid for 6 months unless it states otherwise. So there are some PCCs which will state otherwise, which will say this is valid only for 1 month, then that validity takes over. It might say that this is valid only for 3 months, then that validity takes over. Otherwise, if you are from a country which doesn't say any validity on the PCC, and if it is your country of residence, you have resided in that country for 6 months or more in a row, that PCC is valid for 6 months from the date of issue. And if you have submitted your application within that 6 months period, you've provided the PCC, you're good to go. There is no problem. If you require a PCC from a country which is not your country of residence, for example, you are in Canada, you need a PCC from India because you are an Indian citizen, you have lived your life in India, you've spent a lot of time in India, you're adulthood in India. Now you're in Canada. You need to get a PCC from India. So you cannot go to India, get the PCC from India, come back to Canada, and then submit your application. Your country of residence is now Canada. It's not India. So for the Indian PCC, you must get it from outside India and submit it in your application. And that PCC, because you have obtained it while you are outside that country, you did not go back to that country, that PCC remains valid. If you go back to that country even for an hour, that PCC is no longer valid. Okay, this is the condition. I know on the IRCC website there is a misleading text which says only if you have stayed in that country for 6 months or more in a row, only then you need. So people misunderstand this. People think that if I go back to my country, which is India, and if I haven't stayed for 6 months again, then I don't need the PCC. I can simply use the old one. It is incorrect. It's untrue. It is not your country of residence anymore. Therefore, if you go back to India, even for 1 day, even for 1 hour, the PCC becomes invalid. The reason for that is because since it is not your country of residence, it will not cover your entire duration of your stay. And bang, that makes your application, it will be refused. In most cases, we have seen tons and tons and tons of refusal because of things like this, where the entire duration of the stay was not covered in a PCC. Then there are PCCs like Australia, where there is additional requirement. You also need driving record. So if you will only provide the PCC, your application will get refused. You also need to provide the driving record. If you have resided in Queensland, you have resided in Victoria, you will need to get the driving record from those 2 states. If you do not have a driving license, doesn't matter, get a no driving record. If you do not reside in those states anymore, doesn't matter, get a no driving record, because you are saying you don't reside in the state, but what if you did? So it's always best to have that no driving record. I have seen, again, tons of refusal because people don't follow the requirements. Always check IRCC's website. They have very detailed description and instructions on how you can obtain PCC from different countries, and that's how it rolls. With AIP, Atlantic Immigration Program, when I try to apply for work permit, it is asking to upload employment contract. My question is, the job offer with job description isn't enough or requires something called employment contract. Employment contract is a requirement. You should ask your employer to give you, or rather issue your employment contract, which you can then upload in your application. I have applied for New Brunswick Express Entry Occupation in Demand in March. Have they invited anyone in that scheme? I don't know. I am not following that at this point of time. Passport will expire after landing. Will I face any problems with IRCC regarding COPR, PBR? If your passport is expiring after landing, then who's asking you about it? Nobody, right? Simply just get it extended after you have landed. No problem. Can you explain the security process and when to expect PPR? FSWO, 2 persons, AOR 915, eligibility and criminality passed. Thank you. Security is a very wide subject. There are external agencies involved who will also conduct a security check. It could be the CSIS, it could be the CBSA, it could be the RCMP, depending on your background, depending on where all you have resided, depending on where all you have traveled, depending on how frequently you have traveled, depending on your nationality, depending on your country of origin, and so many other factors, depending on whether you had past refusals, depending on whether you're working for the military or you've had any military background, or you've been working for any specific government department which is of certain concern, or you have worked for an employer who also had certain issues in terms of any criminality. All of these will have an impact on your security checks and security clearances, on your security background checks. So therefore, I can't tell you how long it will take. Sorry about that. I keep sniffling today. Got these seasonal weather is changing, right? I mean, yesterday it was raining the whole day. Anyways, let's get back to this. When can we expect ITA for 486 CRS? I can't tell you. So much of uncertainty, so much of unknown in future. But if everything goes the way it is going, you're expecting somewhere in the range of Febish, Jan, Feb, probably Jan and Febish, if everything goes the way it is going right now. Can main applicant use spouse bank statement as proof of fund? If yes, what are the documents needed to provide? What are the documents are needed? Yes, you can. Your spouse, if accompanying, only if accompanying in your PR application, you can have proof of funds in your spouse's name, entirely in your spouse's name, jointly in your spouse's name, or in combination, some in your account, some in your wife's account or your spouse's account, no problem. The only document you need from your spouse is a letter of consent, which will say that this is my account number, this is the amount of funds available in my account, my spouse so and so has the I consent to my spouse using the funds in my account with no obligation, and that's all you need to provide. नमस्कार कुबेर जी, विजिट वीजा पर कनाडा आए हुए एज 53 साल की गाइड करें on obtaining a work permit. Well, the only way to get a work permit इन कैनेडा और कनाडा में आने के बाद, अगर आपको वर्क परमिट की जरूरत है, आप वर्क परमिट लेना चाहते हैं, आपकी एज चाहे कुछ भी हो, तो सिर्फ और सिर्फ रिक्वायरमेंट है टू गेट एन LMIA. आई मीन, अगर आप ऐसी कंट्री से हैं जो कि एग्जेम्प्ट है LMIA से, जो कि एग्जेम्प्ट है, या ऐसी कंट्री से आते हैं जिनके साथ कनाडा का कुछ एग्रीमेंट है, जैसे कि कुजमा, जैसे कि नाफ्टा, या कोई दूसरा एग्रीमेंट हो, कुछ यूरोपियन कंट्रीज के साथ में भी है, तो फिर आप एक LMIA एग्जेम्प्ट की पॉसिबिलिटी में आ जाते हैं, प्रोवाइडेड आपके पास एक एम्प्लॉयर भी है जो आपको जॉब ऑफर दे सके, या फिर आप ऐसे ऑक्यूपेशन में हैं जिसमें LMIA की जरूरत ना पड़े, तो फिर अगर आपका एम्प्लॉयर आपको जॉब ऑफर देता है, LMIA नहीं चाहिए, आप उस वर्क परमिट पे भी बिना LMIA के अप्लाई कर सकते हैं. अदरवाइज इन ऑल कंडीशंस आपको LMIA की जरूरत पड़ेगी. उसके लिए आपको एम्प्लॉयर ढूंढना पड़ेगा जो कि आपकी एम्प्लॉयर, आपकी एम्प्लॉयमेंट, आपकी ऑक्यूपेशन में, आपके बैकग्राउंड में इंटरेस्टेड हो और आपके लिए LMIA इशू करवा सके. एंड वंस यू गेट द पॉजिटिव LMIA, यू कैन फ्लैग पोल, यू कैन गो टू द बॉर्डर, और यू कैन अप्लाई फॉर अ वर्क परमिट ऑनलाइन. इन बोथ केसेस यू आर गुड टू गो. We received our PGWP extension approvals. Congratulations. Should we withdraw our visitor record applications or leave it there? Is it still refundable? Right to Eric Pagulayan. Well, leave it there if you have it. It would be withdrawn and hopefully you would get your money refunded as well. Okay. I'm seeing some similar questions. All right. Can you share the employment letter format? How much percentage? Oh, we just did the percentage. As for the format, please check Google. There are plenty of formats. I obviously cannot share the formats with you. Can a couple go with a study permit and spouse open work permit, create EE profile after spouse having completed 1 year of work experience, adding the other while he is still being a student by only claiming work? Yes, you can. No problem with that. Which province is best for PR in nursing? Well, any province that gives you a job offer is good to go. I think there are certain provinces who are now become more active in inviting the nurses. I have seen Nova Scotia quite active. I have seen to an extent even Saskatchewan, but in any condition, you will need licensing and certification, which you must try and get if you can earlier. Everything passed CEC inland, no final decision yet. VO Edmonton. Well, I hope you get it soon. If a couple with PR have a baby delivered outside Canada, after doing soft landing, what is the process and how long is the waiting time to get PR for the child before re-entry into Canada? Well, one of the parents will have to come back to Canada and apply for the permanent residence for the child under the family class. You may also apply for a TRP, not a TRV. A lot of people make that mistake. They apply for a TRV, temporary residence visa, visitor visa. Now, in some cases, it might get approved. In most cases, it gets refused. So you can apply for TRP, temporary resident permit. Temporary resident permit is usually applied in situations where the individual for who you are applying for, in this case, your child, is inadmissible to Canada. Now, Your child is inadmissible to Canada, and you will wonder, why is my child inadmissible to Canada? Well, the reason why the child is inadmissible to Canada is not because the child is inadmissible, because the child is not eligible as an individual who qualifies as a temporary resident. And the reason for that is because the child is a child on its own. The child cannot show any ties, any finances, any attachment to whatsoever. And obviously, the child also has a very high degree of ties to Canada because both the parents are permanent resident. Therefore, in this condition, I tell you, I recommend, I suggest that you apply for TRP. The approval rates are much better, much higher, whereby you will indicate the compelling reasons why the child needs to come to Canada, because obviously the child cannot stay away from the parent, of course. And the parents obviously need to be in Canada because they have to comply with their residency obligation. And therefore, in combination of the two, the TRP has a much higher chances of approval. Once your child is in Canada, you can apply for permanent residence under the family class, or as I said, one of you as a parent will return back to Canada and then apply for temporary permanent residence under the family class. Okay, we've done this. Can sibling be a sponsor for his brother for master's study in Canada? How will this impact on a study permit application? You can sponsor your brother's education. There is no problem. You can pledge to pay for all the expenses, including the tuition fee and including the any other expenses. You can absolutely do that. In this case, you would have to show your finances, you would have to show your relationship, and you would have to sort of provide a support letter as well. And so the impact is still going to be, rather the application will still be assessed based on the merit of the applicant, based on the merit of the student, as to why the person is wanting to come to Canada to study. Sometimes it works negatively by having your sibling in Canada, because that creates ties to Canada. And sometimes some visa officers take it negatively. But if you're asking me, can you do it? Yes, you can do it. The impact, there is no impact as such, as long as the finances are proven. So if you wish to do it, by all means do it. Will we be taxed for taking money into Canada as a PR? Well, you don't get taxed for taking money. You get taxed for global income after you become PR. But do speak to your tax consultant. They are in a better position to guide you with this. How do you answer questions on the chat? Is it random? I answer the questions based on how it appears on my feed. Sometimes it's random. Sometimes I go up top to bottom. Sometimes there are a lot of repeat questions, so I skip some of them. And of course, there are a lot of super chats. Like, for example, this one. They're highlighted in yellow or a different color, and they sort of keep popping on my screen again and again. And hence, I take them because I want to get them cleared out at the earliest. And of course, they've paid, so I sort of sometimes feel obligated, because it's not nice. I don't want anybody to pay for anything at this point of, not this point, any point of time when I'm doing these sessions, but they do it anyways, and it starts popping up in big bold colors, and hence, I do that. Like this one, like there is no question. I would have, but what can I do about this? But I will still answer these questions as well, even if they're not popping in color or whatever, because that's how this whole thing is supposed to be. What is the best option to get PR for a person who's on closed work permit, NOC, LMIA, and ECA postgraduate general IELTS 7? You will need to find an employer who is going to support your application. You will need to find a province and a program which will also open up doors to that NOC that you're working on. In most cases, that would be the Atlantic immigration programs. There could be some rural programs. There could be RNIP, Rural Northern Immigration Programs. There could also be, if you're in Saskatchewan, then hard to find skills pilot program. Those are the programs you're looking at. I have 1-year-old Canadian child. She visited India for 2 months as well. Will she need medical PCC? Has to be part of PR application. If your child is inside Canada, if you are inside Canada, and then you use the same medicals, and if they have been issued within the last 5 years, if you're applying for your permanent residence. Same question, already answered. I don't have one of employer's offer letter, but I do have experience certificate. Is it sufficient to provide it for work visa application? Your letters from the employer are required to give details of the job that you are doing. If you don't provide that, then your work visa application can become a difficult one, because one of the criteria for a work permit application is for the visa officer to assess whether you are qualified, whether you're experienced, whether you can actually perform the job that you are supposed to be doing. And if you're not able to establish that based on your past work experience, then unfortunately it won't work. I just wanted to know, if a person gets work permit under ICT, is it possible his spouse and children stay in any other province? For example, someone gets work permit from Nova Scotia, his wife stays in Ontario. Yes, of course, it's absolutely possible. Your spouse would have an open work permit. An open work permit allows them to live and work anywhere in Canada. There is no problem. There is no issues at all. Giving more details on my earlier super chat, I am an LMIA exempted ICT closed work permit and have completed 1 year of job experience. My work permit is expired and my employer has already filed for extension. You know what? I forgot what your earlier question was. Now let's see if I can find that. Oh boy. This is tricky. All right, you're an LMIA exempt ICT closed work permit and you have completed 1 year of work experience. And your question was, can we get 50 points for job offer if ITA is received during implied status? My current work permit is expired. My extension is already filed. Then the answer to your question is yes, because you're in an ICT work permit. You have applied for extension. You have a job offer. Your job offer from your employer must categorically specifically state that this job offer is valid for 1 year after you become your PR. You have that job offer. You have all this information. I mean, you have all these details. Provide the explanation, provide the documents, explain about your implied status and the fact that a new extension has been applied for, and you absolutely can claim points and you can move ahead. There is no problem whatsoever. Does it affect if we have US work visa like L1A while we have closed work permit of Canada simultaneously? No, it does not affect at all. There are no problems. I have 1 year of experience in FSR. When Bill C-19 implements, do my job experience will not consider? I'm not sure what we are talking about here. But since Bill C-19 has not yet been implemented, we do not know the conditions. We do not know the criteria. Everything is speculation at this point of time. And therefore, I do not know what will they consider and not consider. We did this already. Okay, sorry, going back to the queue again. PR visa approved. Can principal land in Canada with our kids and accompanying spouse can land later after the family has already landed, or do they have to move all at a time? No, you can all land at different times. There is no problem. The principal must land first. That is the most important criteria. The principal applicant has to land first. The kids can accompany. There is no problem. The spouse can join later. There is no problem, as long as everybody arrives in Canada within the validity period of their visa. Also, mind you, if your spouse is arriving in Canada first with the children, then you must, or the spouse must carry an NOC for the children to be traveling without the other spouse. So that is something which you must ensure that you have. For the FSW program, will it continue to drop in the score until satisfying the quota for this year? My CRS is a bit low, 392, and my wife is at 408. I will have to be extremely blunt and brutal and honest and tell you that scores of 392 and 408 has zero chance in federal skilled worker program. Zero. I don't see that happening. The lowest score ever in express entry federal skilled worker program has been 413, which happened on the 31st of May, 2017. Never after that, never before that. And 413 was the lowest. And at that point of time, there were only 42,000 people in the express entry pool. Only 42,000 people. That's how the scores went down to 413. There is absolutely zero chance for that to happen again. Of course, Bill C-19 can make anything possible. But without that, I don't see that happening at all. I'm sorry. Can my friend sponsor for my master's study? Well, listen, anybody can sponsor for your studies, but it has to be very difficult for IRCC to believe. And I've seen refusals in such cases. Your friend is going to pay for your expenses. What if there is a fallout between you two? And what if your friend doesn't want to call you a friend anymore because you have fought over who gets to hold the remote control, kind of a thing. So yeah, this is not most advisable, to be very honest. Okay, I have done BDS from India. I have 2 years of experience. My CRS is 455. What are my chances? Any specific PNP program I should go for? Should I change my knock code? You cannot change your knock code I mean, your knock code is based on the work experience that you have. And as far as 455, I don't give it too much of a chance at all, given the current circumstances. As far as PNP is concerned, based on your work experience, based on your knock code, you can look at what the other PNP options are. I'll be very honest with you. I don't see too much happening here. You might have to look at other options, job offer, French as a second language, study in Canada. Any of those might work for you. Okay, I can see a lot of repeat questions. You missed my chat. No, I didn't. I just completed it. If I go to Canada with a visitor visa and I found a job and I got my work permit, how can I get permanent residence from the work permit? You don't get permanent residence from the work permit. Having a work permit, having a job offer gives you certain points, gives you certain advantages. Based on that, depending on the work permit, depending on the province, depending on the background that you have, you may be eligible for a certain immigration program, PNP program, express entry, depending on what the background might be. Based on that, you can find a pathway and then apply for PR. मुझे आप कनाडा एप्लीकेशन अप्लाई करने का तरीका बताएं। तरीका बहुत सिंपल स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड है। एक वेबसाइट है जिसका नाम है canada.ca, उस पे जाएं, उस पे अलग अलग ऑप्शंस हैं स्क्रीन पे, उसको दबाएं और उसमें देखें कि आप कहां एलिजिबल होते हैं, कौन सा वीजा अप्लाई करना चाहते हैं, उसका क्राइटेरिया क्या है, उसको कंप्लाई करें, उसको फुलफिल करें और उस बेसिस पे आप अपना वीजा फाइल करें। For New Brunswick session, various sectors, do they organize a general session for all or they do it individually? I'm sorry, I do not understand what you mean. They have different sessions and whoever they consider as eligible, they invite them. Once they've invited them, then they, I do not know how to say this, but either it will be a virtual session or it would be an in-person session, depending on what kind of a stream that they are inviting on. And if they find you eligible, then they will send you an invitation to apply. My family Canada visitor visa, 2 months waiting, how much time? You can check IRCC website for the processing times. They are actually updating them quite regularly. Please reply, if the job duties on my employment letter are a copy paste of job duties mentioned in the knock, is that going to be an issue? It is 100% going to be a big issue. You cannot copy paste the duties from the knock. You must paraphrase them. Can I apply for student visa while having an active express entry profile? Yes, you can. I'm an expired COPR holder. How long does it take after resubmission of past medical PCC to get PPR? There is no specific timeline. It depends on whenever your application is up next for the processing queue. I'm showing Indian work experience from 2 employers for PR. Do I need to submit bank statements of salary from both the employers or one with whom I'm currently working? Any period of work that you're claiming points for, I would strongly recommend you provide all the documents in terms of proving your work experience. That includes providing your reference letters which show your job description, job duties, as well as your proof of salary. So pay stubs, bank statements, tax returns, provide all of that for all the periods of work that you're claiming points for. If my spouse is there in Canada during post-graduation and I moved there in spouse visa, can I later change to work visa if I get a job offer? Well, if you're moving on a spouse visa because your spouse is in Canada on a postgraduate, then you're already moving on a work permit. So I'm not sure what else do you want to do. I mean, you have a work permit. That's the reason. Spouse's visa is open work permit. That is what the spouse's visa is. My child is a Canadian citizen. We have applied for PR. Will I have to add child in my PR application? She's already a Canadian citizen. Yes, you will have to. If your child is already a Canadian citizen, you will have to still mention that your child is, as part of your application, you will have to mention your child is not accompanying you in the application. Otherwise, the system will charge you for the fee. And you will say, because the child is already a Canadian citizen, that's why the child is not accompanying me in the PR application. When it will ask you for a passport and medicals, etc., in all the tabs, you can upload your child's Canadian passport or birth certificate or both. If all provincial nominations are routed through express entry, then how CRS will fall down? Well, all provincial nominations are not routed through express entry. Only 1/5 of the PNPs are routed through express entry. Rest of the PNPs are actually non-express entry. Megha says, I started my business along with MBA, which I completed in 2020. Will that be considered as self-employed part-time work? If yes, how can I prove it? If your business was outside Canada, then yes, you can claim points for it. You will need proof of ownership. You will need proof of business activities. You will need to show reference letters from your clients to show your knock code, and you will need to prove that you were paid, your business was paid. And for that, excuse me, sorry, I got a bit of sniffles today. And for that, you will need to get reference letters from your clients, and you will need to prove that you were paid. So your invoices, bank statements, income tax returns of the business to show that this was a revenue generating business. That is what you will need to prove your work experience. Sorry. CRS 464, can I expect PNP, as FSW is a dream right now? Well, it is a possibility, to be very honest, but I can't tell you how and when. And also because there might be a lot of people with a higher score with the same knock code. My visa got refused, which was applied before 7th of October. I have reapplied yesterday. Am I eligible for full-time campus as a student visa, Jan 23 intake? No, you are not, because your reapplication was after 7th of October, and if that is approved, you will not be eligible. We have applied for PR. Can I add my child for PR? We just responded to that one. Can a main applicant, after getting AOR, submit because Germany process is very slow? Well, you have to first submit proof of having applied for the PCC, and you will have to provide an explanation why is that a delay, and then yes, you can submit it once you get it later. Okay, last couple of questions before we scoot off. Can I apply for visit visa or a study permit if I have an express? We just answered that one, right? Yeah. I came on visitor visa in June with a PCC to Canada. If I get my ITA, do I need to do a PCC again? Yes, you will need to do a PCC again, because you are now outside your country of residence, and you need to be able to apply for a PCC from outside the country of residence. So yes, you will need a new PCC, absolutely. Once again, thank you very much for joining in. Again, to remind everybody, we are launching our new office in person on the 19th of November. This is an invitation to everybody who is in Toronto GTA area. You're more than welcome if you can. That's the address, suite number 201, 2950 Keele Street, North York. We would be very happy to have you for a cup of coffee. We are there from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. on the 19th of November, which is Saturday, happening in 7 days from now. Next Saturday. So next Saturday, we will be broadcasting this live stream from the new office. At the same time, also be hosting whoever wishes to come. And yeah, more than welcome to come and have a chat, meet with our team, talk about trends, analysis, what the scores are looking like, and how it might work for you, not work for you. And at the same time, we are also offering decent, I would say, promotional discount for our services on that particular day. So if you're in the office, by all means, we'll be happy to have you there. Thank you so much for joining in. If you want to make an appointment with me one-on-one, then please, that's the link. By all means, use that link and make an appointment. We can discuss your application much more in detail. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We would like to see those numbers going up. Of course, do also please share and like so that more people can get access to this video. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Take care. I'll see you next time from the new office.